Modern interest in pre-Christian European faiths is surging, but while Norse heathenry often gets the Hollywood spotlight, the Slavic native faith offers an incredibly rich, alternative route for those looking to reconnect with these ancient paths. Reconstructing a dead religion presents a massive dilemma for both historians and modern practitioners. You have to decide what kind of evidence you trust more: surviving mythological texts or surviving rural folk rituals. The Norse path has a literary advantage. Texts like the Eddas provide a clear map of their gods, but we've lost their daily rituals. The Slavic reality is the opposite. They lack written mythology, but possess an unbroken chain of surviving rural rituals. This chart maps out where these two faiths sit on the spectrum of historical reconstruction. Norse Asatru sits high on text, but low on surviving ritual. Slavic Rodneveri sits low on text, but high on living folk tradition. To figure out which approach makes the most sense for you, we need to evaluate how these two neighbors handled the cosmos, their ancestors, and the natural world. Choosing between Norse and Slavic paganism is a choice between a religion of literature and a religion of lived animism. This matrix compares the core pillars of both paths, starting with how each tradition structures the universe through a world tree. The Norse cosmological model centers on Yggdrasil, a colossal ash tree that rigidly holds 9 distinct, heavily mapped-out worlds. Adopting Yggdrasil gives you a highly detailed literary cosmology, but its epic cosmic scale can sometimes feel disconnected from physical, earthly nature worship. It's a map of the universe, not your backyard. Contrast this with the Slavic world tree. This is a humongous oak tree acting as a simpler, dualistic axis. The branches directly connect to the sky gods, and the roots bury straight down into the underworld. This chart shows a common pitfall studying the Slavic path. Modern practitioners often use a 3-tiered system called Prav, Yav, and Nav. But this is a modern invention, lacking primary historical backing, forced onto the mythology to mimic the Norse model. The Norse cosmos offers strict canonical certainty. The Slavic cosmos asks you to navigate the friction between historical fact and modern fiction to find a working structure. This updated matrix moves us to the next pillar of practice: how each tradition handles the dead. The Norse practice of alfablot is a private honoring of the dead, historically performed at local burial mounds at the onset of winter. Because alfablot was a strictly private household ritual, few details survive on how it was performed. If you practice this today, you have to rely heavily on modern guesswork. Look at the Slavic practices of Dziady or Zaduszewski. Here, the folk traditions of communing with the dead survive robustly to this day. The mechanics of Slavic ancestor worship are visceral. Families set empty plates at the dinner table and leave doors open during certain festivals, expecting literal, physical visits from underworld spirits known as Navi. During the winter solstice, Bodnyak ritual, an oak log representing the world tree, is burned indoors to actively welcome underworld blessings into the home. The Slavic path demands an intense, daily focus on the household dead. If you prefer the Norse focus on worshiping high, heroic gods, this heavy emphasis on the dead can feel intimidating. This section of the matrix looks at how practitioners interact with their physical environment. In the Norse path, the primary focus falls on high gods like Thor or Odin, defined by heroic ethics and preparing for Ragnarok. With sagas centered on divine personalities, the landscape serves as a monumental setting for the drama of the gods, not spirits requiring daily negotiation. The Slavic animistic approach is deeply hyper-localized. You focus on venerating active, local spirits, like the Leshy in the woods, the Domovoy in the home, and the Rusalki in the rivers. Every river, threshold, and forest has an active spirit requiring appeasement. This creates a reactive world, blurring the line between formal religion and daily superstition. The Norse practitioner looks up at the sky and heroic ideals. The Slavic practitioner looks down at the reactive, spirit-filled dirt and water beneath their feet. This final row of the matrix covers the actual, physical mechanics of performing a ritual. The Slavic Dodola, or Paraparuna rain ritual, provides a uniquely intact example of how sympathetic folk magic functioned in rural Europe for centuries. During a drought, young girls adorn themselves entirely in fresh oak and willow branches, dancing from house to house through the village. The magic climaxes when neighbors douse the dancers with water while chanting. They literally imitate rain to magically coerce the sky to open up. This ritual was so deeply embedded in the rural culture that it persisted long after the region was officially Christianized. Sympathetic magic like this is highly performative and communal. You cannot easily practice the Slavic path as a solitary, introverted pagan. It demands theatrical participation and community buy-in. This flowchart breaks down the core realization of our comparison. Choosing your path is about determining what kind of spiritual input you value most. We can call the first profile the analytical mythologist. If you want a structured pantheon, clear afterlives like Valhalla, and prefer to rely on primary literature to guide your practice, Norse heathenry is the definitive choice. The second profile is the practical animist. If you are drawn to ancestral feasts, negotiating with household spirits, and finding the sacred in an oak tree, the Slavic native faith offers a deeply living tradition, even without the canonical texts. The specifics of the Slavic gods might be historically obscured, but the physical connection to the earth and the ancestors remains remarkably intact. The choice rests on which historical survival you trust, the heroic clarity of the written word or the ritualized memory of the soil and the home.